Hello, dear friends. Screaming in nature doesn't solve the world's problems, but it does provide relief. Opinion piece. The Primal Scream. Sartre's Nausea. The Art of Exploding. Spectacular Therapy. Can't take it anymore. Screams, cries, or grunts. The absurdity of existence. Expressing repressed pain. This is as far as we have come. John Lennon gave the scream. Therapy made Yoko Ono famous. Film director Ingmar Bergman too. Free trade agreement between Europe and Mercosur. Syria falls into the hands of insurgents and Assad flees to Iran. Let's start. The Primal Scream is a spectacular therapeutic technique developed by psychologist Arthur Janov in the 1960s. This form of psychotherapy is based on the idea that psychological problems and neuroses are caused by repressed pain and childhood traumas. It is a guttural cry that must come from the depths of the being, from the belly. It's not just screaming for the sake of screaming. It is intended to be a liberating cry which allows the release of accumulated emotional energy. There comes a time when one cannot explain anything, but only express what one feels instinctively. Have you ever felt like screaming at the top of your lungs? Primal therapy is based on the idea of releasing repressed emotions caused by a traumatic event or by some psychological pain that we have not faced, such as unresolved grief. If we don't release these emotions, Janov's theory states that they cause physical symptoms such as asthma, headaches, and gastrointestinal problems. It is a type of psychotherapy linked to humanistic psychology and psychoanalysis that seeks to treat childhood traumas. Its creator was Arthur Janov, a Californian psychoanalyst who gained great notoriety after the publication of his book The Primal Scream in 1970. In it, he argued that unexpressed pain and painful memories are the origin of most human illnesses. Factors such as abandonment, abuse, lack of love, and unmet needs in our childhood are the objectives that primal or primary therapy seeks to treat. This therapy gained popularity in the 1970s, especially after John Lennon and Yoko Ono tried it. The popularity of both had a significant impact on the spread of primal therapy. John Lennon himself commented that after years of therapeutic work with Arthur Janov, he was able to assimilate a good part of his childhood. He also confessed that constructing this story helped him recover his creative potential at a specific time in his career. Eric Clapton participated in musical projects with Lennon during the period in which he was involved with primal therapy. The famous couple's involvement in the therapy increased its visibility and captured public attention, popularizing it worldwide. The fact that two such well-known celebrities underwent this therapy sparked a great deal of media interest. Lennon's experience with primal therapy inspired artistic creations and directly influenced his music, especially his 1970 album John Lennon Plastic Ono Banda. Lennon and Ono's involvement inspired other public figures to become interested in the therapy, such as the famous Swedish film director Ingmar Bergman, who was drawn to Arthur Janov's ideas. His 1976 film Face to Face was inspired by reading the book The Primal Scream, although Bergman admitted that his understanding of the subject was enthusiastic but poorly digested. Definition: the primal scream is a therapeutic technique developed by Arthur Janov in the 1960s that involves releasing repressed emotions caused by childhood trauma or psychological pain, reconnecting the suffering with the body to relive and re-wake the pain, and fully expressing the repressed pain through screaming, crying, or grunting in a controlled environment, usually in padded and soundproof room. The person is placed in a vulnerable position, with their limbs extended. The therapist guides the patient to immerse themselves in their repressed emotions and sensations. The expression of the primal scream may include intense and prolonged screaming, deep crying, grunting, kicking, and body writhing. The patient is encouraged to fully release their emotions without inhibitions. The ultimate goal is for the patient to release and express their or his repressed emotions in order to resolve psychological problems or overcome traumas. Nausea. Similar to all this would be the Sartre's Nausea, a fundamental existential experience that reveals the absurdity of existence. It is not a simple physical discomfort, but a non-positional awareness of one's own existence as something gratuitous and unjustified. In his novel, Jean-Paul Sartre embodies this experience in the protagonist Antoine Roquetin, who perceives the world and his own existence as abstract, empty, and meaningless. This sensation affects his perception of reality, leading him to question the purpose of life and the nature of human existence. Nausea, for Sartre, is not simply a metaphor for psychological discomforts, but the very foundation of nausea, an experience that places the individual beyond any known logical explanation. It is, in essence, the grasp of existence in its purest and most disconcerting form. Sartre distinguishes between nausea and anxiety as two different but related existential experiences. While nausea is an experience of the contingency of the world, anxiety is the experience of individuals' freedom and responsibility in the face of that contingency. Nausea reveals the absurdity of existence, while anxiety arises as a consequence of facing that freedom and responsibility in a world without inherent meaning. Economy. The economy is the most visible indicator of social changes due to its deep interconnection with various aspects of daily life and its direct impact on people's well-being. The economy acts as a visible and sensitive barometer of social changes, often reflecting and catalyzing transformations in the structure and dynamics of society. The economy directly affects people's quality of life through employment, income, and opportunities. A healthy labor market not only provides financial stability, but also influences self-esteem and social cohesion. In Spain, for example, citizens identify unemployment and economic problems as the main social concern. Spain. The price of housing accentuates its rise to 8.1% in Spain, the highest increase in 2.5 years. Spanish hotels are around 70% occupied during this constitution breach. Tourists in Malaga refuse to give their credit card details for the new traveler registry. What interest that Spain obeyed by deploying its navy in the Asian Pacific zone? Australia expands its military ties with New Zealand. A report by the Civil Guard questioned the official version of the controversial trip by the Vice President of Venezuela to Spain in 2020. USA. A magnitude 7 earthquake shook Northern California and triggered tsunami alert. Trump promised that he would grant the green card to university graduates. The White House could pardon Democrats who could be subject to investigation and criminal prosecution during Trump's term. 11 state attorneys general have sued BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard for violating antitrust laws. Texas will not tolerate the financial industry being illegally used as a weapon, says Attorney General Ken Paxton. Russia. Putin agrees to deploy the Resnik missile in Belarus. Russia warns of the risk of moving from a Cold War to a hot one due to Ukraine. Lavrov tells Carlson, not to NATO on our doorstep. Russia doesn't want war or a direct confrontation with the US. Asia. Russia abandons Syria. The Assad regime collapses and Syria falls into the hands of the rebels. Assad flees to Iran. Russia orders all its citizens to leave Syria immediately. Baghdad, Damascus, and Tehran announce coordination of actions in the face of the situation in Syria. The Achilles heel that postpones US plans for a possible conflict against China. The development of the next generation of tanker aircraft in the US may be put on hold indefinitely. Foreign spies recruit Chinese teenagers to steal secrets. Young people are lured under the guise of lucrative and easy part-time jobs, says the Ministry of National Security. Europe. Macron to meet Trump and Zelensky before Notre Dame reopens. Macron begins contacts to form a new government in France after accepting Barnier's resignation. The Third World War has already begun, in opinion of the Serbian Deputy Prime Minister. Justice announced the first round of the presidential elections in Romania. The winner of the first round of the presidential elections in Romania described the annulment as the vote as a coup d'état. A war to wipe out farmers and enslave Europeans by debt continues. In quotes, the irresponsible policy of governments in terms of green energy leads to an increase in debt, the execution of court rulings, the seizure of homes and farms, and the collapse of companies, especially the smallest one, says Lukas Bernasinski, member of the board of directors of the Odo Juris Institute of Legal Culture. In Denmark, all telecommunications and rail transport were suspended last week. When they reopened, the government suddenly announced it was putting most farmers out of work by imposing the world's first tax on agricultural emissions, including cattle farts. Americas. Mercosur and EU announced free trade agreement after 25 years of negotiations. Von der Leyen ignored Macron's no and closed the trade agreement with Mercosur. Panama formalizes its entry into Mercosur as an associated state. Panama says it would not accept immigrants of another nationality who were deported by the future Trump government. The Panamanian president takes measures against countries that call Panama a tax haven. The president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, celebrates the increase in the value of Bitcoin. Argentina. Tension between Milei and Lula at the Mercosur summit. 54% of Argentines approve of Javier Milei's government. Social and union movements in Argentina march against the government for fiscal adjustment. The case of the Argentine senator arrested with $200,000 stains all politics. The examination of public employees in Argentina seeks to legitimize a greater cut. Cristina Kirchner will go to trial for the memorandum case with Iran. Chile creates a new portfolio, the Ministry of Public Security. Brazil. Lula inaugurates the largest cellulose factory in the world in Brazil. Brazil recorded its lowest level of poverty in more than a decade in 2023. Brazil accuses Volkswagen's subsidiary of imposing slave labor. Brazil resurrects one of its largest hydroelectric plants after overcoming a historic drought. Brazilian police break records for rifle seizures in Rio de Janeiro. Mexico. Sheinbaum seeks an agreement with Trump to send deported migrants who are not Mexican directly to their countries of origin. Sheinbaum will meet with governors to define a plan in the face of the possible mass deportation of migrants. The Mexican government has detained almost 350,000 migrants since October 1st. Sheinbaum proposes a reform to ensure the rights of digital workers. The Mexican government demands that businessman Salinas Pliego pay the taxes he owes. The Mexican state of Guanajuato surpasses Sinaloa in homicides. South America. UN committee opens investigation into the electoral process in Venezuela. The president of Colombia asks for the resignation of his finance minister. Petro confirms the start of an operation against the Gulf clan. Forced disappearance in Colombia range between 98,000 and 200,000 cases, according to the UN. 20,000 corpses found at Bogotá's El Dorado International Airport. A cargo plane failure paralyzes Bolivia's largest airport. An Ecuadorian court recognizes that a Japanese company used a practice analogous to slavery. Barbers protest in Lima to denounce a wave of murders and extortions. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.